Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. The unsurpassed, deep, profound, subtle, wonderful Dharma in 100,000 million eons is difficult to encounter. Now that I've come to receive and hold it within my sight and hearing, I vow to fathom the thus come one's true and actual meaning.
Okay, thank you.
Long ơi.
Anh kêu đệ tử của anh vô nè.
Nó bữa nay nó đi camping Long ơi.
Ok, rồi, ok, tôi có gì tôi. All right. Okay, let's do this. Tammy, can you help me to summarize what we have learned last week?
We learned a lot about depression, the different signs of depression.
Okay. Okay. We also learned about the 4 keys of this thing here, I guess. Okay. We learned about the 4 keys of question here. Are there skills that the people have that serve to insulate them against the depression? That means they said that if we can teach them the skill, hopefully that can be help them to fight against the depression. Can we identify this kind of skill, and can those skills can be learnable from them, and those skills can be teachable to them? This is important. Can we prove scientifically that the people learn this skill, that it makes a difference? Do this skill have any prevention value? So the answer is it's yes to all. So basically, it's very important. And we will go through here. Before we go through the whole thing, I think it's let watch the remaining video. Let's watch the remaining video, and we will summarize at once. I think that will be a good idea. Okay.
Yeah. So if we look at what these risk factors are that I'm talking about, when I said there are scores of risk factors, literally dozens and dozens of risk factors, things that singly and in combination can give rise to depression very easily. I want to highlight for you some of the key ones, some of the risk factors that have a greater impact than do others. And I'm going to describe these for you and give you an idea of what they look like, sound like, and what you can actually do about them. How are we doing? Okay. So the first one, well, let me name them first: the internal orientation, stress generation, rumination, global thinking, and finally, unrealistic expectations. Let's look at each risk factor individually and how it influences your overall quality of experience. The first one, the internal orientation. When I'm talking about the internal orientation, very simply, I mean, what people do is they use themselves as the reference point. They use their feelings to make decisions. They use their feelings to interpret the things that they're interpreting, events that happen in their life. The internal orientation drives you inwardly. There are actually some depression writers who have framed depression as being the most narcissistic of all states. Now that's clearly an exaggeration. but it does speak to the quality of self-absorption, what I mean by the internal orientation. And when you use your feelings as the indicator of what to do, you're going to make mistakes. Now, I know that there are people running around loose in the world who will say to you, trust your feelings, listen to your feelings, listen to what your heart tells you. I can tell you as a psychologist and depression expert, that is really bad advice. Really bad advice. Because your feelings can too easily deceive you. People can so easily think things are worse than they really are. People can think things are better than they really are. To be able to have the ability to go outside yourself and learn something about what's actually going on out there. Well, when I say internal orientation, it's the subjectivity. Here's what I believe. Here's how I feel. This is the way it is. And when people make bad decisions that unintentionally make their life worse, that really speaks to what I'm going to talk about next with stress generation. But the point I'm making now about what does this mean in terms of what to actually do? I put here the goal is to learn to reality test. One of the most important skills you can develop in life is reality testing. How do I go outside myself in order to know whether this is really what's happening? And if you look at the times that people get in the most trouble, it's when they get wrapped up inside in whatever they happen to believe that may have next to nothing to do with what's actually going on out there. Clinicians call this cognitive rigidity. In plain language, what it means is the key problem with depressed people is that they think things and then make the mistake of actually believing themselves. Thinking is dangerous, potentially. And without the ability to learn how to go outside yourself and reality test, all you can do is be a prisoner of your own thoughts. If your own thoughts are depressing, you're in trouble. And it's why, especially here in Australia, where CBT is one of the most commonly applied approaches, and appropriately so, helping people learn the cognitive skills of how to gather information and how to use it, instead of just jumping to unfounded conclusions and believing the things that go on. And of course, this also relates to the social isolation. One of the values of relationships is when you have people close enough to you that you can say to them, here's what's going on, here's what I think about it, and hopefully they care about you enough and they're close enough with you to be able to say to you, I don't think you're right about that. It's why the most important skill to counter cognitive rigidity is cognitive flexibility. How can you train yourself to generate multiple explanations for things that happen? Simple example, I call you up, you're not home, I leave a message. Hi, it's Michael, it's 10 a.m., call me back. It's now 10 p.m. at night and you haven't called me back. If I'm a depressed person, what is my predictable attribution or explanation for why you didn't call me back? You don't care about me anymore. That'll cheer me up. But it doesn't stop there. Then it goes to the next level of how come people don't care about me? Why aren't people ever responsive to me? Why aren't people ever staying my friends? And the next thing you know, this person's built this up and built this up until it's literally a suicidal crisis because you didn't call them back. That's how it works. That's the internal orientation. Training people to generate multiple explanations. Why did this person call back? Could be this, could be this, could be this, could be this, could be this. Which one is it? I don't know. To master the art of recognizing what you don't know, instead of making stuff up and then actually believing yourself. The second risk factor is called stress generation. This is actually one of the most recently developed models of depression. and it has attained already a significant level of empirical support. What stress generation speaks to is how people make decisions that complicate their depression, exacerbate their depression. They don't do it intentionally, but it speaks to the quality of their decision-making strategies. And when people don't have good decision-making strategies, when they just follow their heart, just follow their feelings, they're going to make mistakes. So for example, I can say to my depressed client, I can see from all the cobwebs all over you that you really don't move much. And knowing that exercise has a treatment success rate that matches antidepressants with a much, much lower relapse rate, it really would be a good idea for you to exercise. And invariably my client says, I know, but I don't feel like it. Decision. Your friends say to you, wow, you are really bummed out, you are depressed, you need help, go to the doctor, and you say, no, bad decision. You go to the doctor says, here's the name of 3 therapists, pick one, you need help, you take the names, promptly crumple them up, throw them away, bad decision. That's what I mean by stress generation. How many decisions do you make in the span of a day? And this is what we find, this comes out of the field of affective neuroscience, which is just a fancy title for how do moods influence decision-making processes. It's a fascinating field, and it speaks to the fact that these aren't just cognitive processes that happen, mood influences them. Your mood influences what you remember. Your mood influences how you remember. Your mood influences the quality of choices that you make. Obvious examples. If you're angry, are you going to be more or less willing to take risks? More. If you're afraid, are you more or less likely to take risks? Less. Your mood state influences your perceptions. Your mood state influences the quality of decisions. Helping people make better decisions, filtering the mood out of the process is one of the most important things that we do clinically in the therapeutic work that we do. So you look at these things, don't isolate, socialize. I don't feel like it. Stop drinking. I don't feel like it. Why do I say stop drinking? If you are depressed, if you are vulnerable to depression, your alcohol intake should be 0. Alcohol is a bad drug for people who are depressed or prone to depression. It has been shown to aggravate the same neural pathways as depression. If you are a depressed person, your alcohol consumption should be 0. And when you say that to somebody, particularly if they're Australian, they say, I don't think so. I'm not going to do that. Bad decision. So that's part of the task, is learning how to take actions that are consistent with the goals more so than taking actions consistent with the feelings. The feelings come and go, the consequences last. And to start to think in those terms becomes a very different paradigm for people who are used to following their feelings so closely, the internal orientation I was talking about. That is not one of the 7 habits of highly effective people. When I say alcohol is a bad drug, I am understating it. When we look at the next risk factor, rumination. Rumination means spinning around the same thoughts over and over and over again and analyzing and analyzing and analyzing at the expense of taking action. Rumination drives the symptoms of anxiety. Rumination drives the symptoms of depression. For the people who are ruminators, they have much more difficulty with even the most basic things like sleeping, because their brain doesn't stop. They're always thinking about their problems, always thinking about the issues, trying to figure out what to do next. And the idea, of course, is thinking about problems is generally useful depending how you think about them. If you keep analyzing but never take action, you're going to feel worse. If there is a cure for rumination, it's action. But it has to be timely action. It has to be effective action. It's not just action for the sake of action. That doesn't count as action. So the ability to be able to convert rumination to action. And when we look at the things that people ruminate about, it's almost invariably about relationships. Probably number 2 is school and work-related issues. But relationships are the most prominent. And many of the relationships, of course, are relationships from the past. This is one of the factors of depression. Every problem has a structure. Every problem, every diagnostic label has components. One of the components of depression is what's called a past orientation. People come in and they say, my past controls me. It's because of these traumas in my past. It's because of these things my parents did. It's because of these things that happened to me when I was a kid. And they don't just ruminate about the past, although they do that. When I say they're also using the past as a reference point, I'm saying they use the past to predict the future. So they say things like, I'll never be happy, prediction for the future. Why not? Because I never have been. I'll never get a good job. Why not? Because I've never had one. I'll never have a good relationship. Why not? Because I've never had one. And of course, the most popular one of all, I won't be happy until my parents treat me better when I was a kid. For as long as somebody gets caught up in that loop, they're not going anywhere. Why it becomes so incredibly important to convert to action. And I'm constantly having to remind people, whatever your history is, you're more than your history. You're more than your history. You're more than any one characteristic. You're more than your job. You're more than your title. You're more than your income. You're more than your body size. You're more than how many likes you get on Facebook or Instagram or any of these other social media things. All of that stuff doesn't ultimately matter and can't be the basis for defining self. And when people define themselves, the thing that's troublesome about having to tell people you're more than your history is that when people learn, a therapist says to them, you are a trauma survivor. You are an abuse survivor. On one level, that sounds very empowering. On another level, you're literally adopting the label that says that you can globally define yourself by your unchangeable history. The last thing you want to do is define yourself by your unchangeable history. Why that orientation of the future, what the possibilities are. If I could get every person to absorb that simple phrase, create possibilities. There aren't any guarantees in life, but we can take actions that create possibilities for the future. There is a danger with rumination of thinking too much. The unexamined life isn't worth living, said Socrates. There is a danger in thinking too much. And there's a specific discrimination that has to be made. When is it useful analysis? And when is it useless rumination? And I'll answer the question for you. If it doesn't lead to timely and effective action, it's useless rumination. The next risk factor, one of the strongest ones, is what's called a global cognitive style, if there is such a thing as a typical depressed person, which obviously there isn't. But if there was such a thing, one of the core features is global cognition. Global cognitive style means the person engages in overgeneral thinking. Her boyfriend breaks up with her, she says, men. His girlfriend breaks up with her, women. That's overgeneral thinking, as if they're all the same. Somebody has a bad day, and they don't say, I had a bad day. They say, why is life so unfair? Now we just went from a bad day to life. Could we make it any bigger than that? But what it translates into is when people walk in, sit down, and they say to me, well, all I want is to be happy. Is that too much to ask? All I want is a good relationship. Is that too much to ask? And then I'll ask the specifics. So what do you think it takes to build a good relationship? And the person comes back with an equally global response when they say, chemistry. If you think in those global terms, metaphorically, you see the forest, but you don't see the trees, then you can't be an effective problem solver. You can't solve problems specifically by taking a global approach to it. Now, this isn't global about everything, of course. Somebody can be very specific about the way they manage their bank account and very global in the way that they approach relationships. And it's the things that you don't know about that you are inevitably global for, a general understanding. But you can't learn skills that way. If I want to teach you to drive a car, I can't say to you, become one with the auto. You're going to do a lot better if I say, see this? This is a steering wheel. See that? That's a brake pedal. To get the specifics and learn to think in specific terms is a real challenge when your cognitive style is a global one. Why it's so important to have goals, but goals have to be defined. A goal without steps is merely a wish. What that translates into, one of the most important exercises, is called a flow of steps. This is how we train people to go from global to linear in their thinking. I'll give you the homework assignment as your therapist of picking something that you know how to do, something simple. You know how to dress yourself, you know how to go grocery shopping, you know how to take a shower. Well, you don't just take a shower. That's a global phrase. Taking a shower is a global phrase that represents how many steps involved. So I will give the client the task of, I want you to delineate every step involved in taking a shower. I want you to pretend that somebody who's never done it before is going to follow your sequence, and your job is to guarantee that they succeed at it. Bring it back to me next time. They come back the next time, they have 3 steps. Get wet, lather up, rinse off. Now, if that's what you think goes into taking a shower, what does that say about your ability to be specific and problem solve? I'm the one who then has to say, excuse me, but how do you find where a shower is? And when you find where a shower is, how do you open the door? And how do you walk through the door? And how do you turn on the light switch? And how do you close the door? And do remember to take your clothes off? And what about opening the shower door, moving the shower curtain, and reaching inside and turning on the hot, turning on the cold, and then testing it out, and then flicking the switch from tub to shower? And by the time you sequence it out, depending on your amount of detail, there's going to be at least 50 steps involved in taking a shower. And what if you miss one of them? You didn't know you had to flick the switch from tub to shower. So there you are standing there naked, watching water running down the drain. I'm such a loser. Everybody else can take a shower and I can't. What's wrong with me? And that's the point. Once I have exhausted this taking a shower flow of steps, then I give them the next one. Now that you've done the flow chart for how to take a shower, now I want you to do the flow chart for how to be happy. And that's the first time the person realizes they have not a clue. And then they discover instantly why it isn't happening. If you can't sequence what you're trying to do, it isn't going to happen. This requires a very specific quality of thinking that global thinkers have a hard time doing. It's a training process, training your brain to think in more linear terms in specific areas where you need help. Otherwise, all you can do is go globally, men, women, miss how to distinguish who the good ones are from who the not so good ones are.
Okay, let's stop right here. Let's go to because if we watch the whole thing, we will not remember anything. Okay. Let's go to what we have learned so far, and I will. Okay. We will go through what we. Okay. Before we talk about the depression risk factor, and this is what it also say here. It's what we have come to learn is that it isn't what happened to people that increase their risk for depression so much as how they interpret, respond to what happened to them. Kwa, what do you think about this? Do you understand what is it saying? Kwa, are you there? Okay, let's see. Tina, you understand what is it? No? Anyone try? Tammy, can you help?
So what it's saying is that it doesn't matter what happens, but it's the way that you respond to it that matters. So you could have two different people that had the same kind of trauma from the past, where one can become successful and one doesn't. And that goes to the way that they respond to what has happened to them, or the way that they were raised really to respond to situations. Because one person may have been brought up in a negative atmosphere, so they're going to be stuck in depression, where someone else may have been grown up in a more supportive family that taught them positive thinking, and they're going to be able to interpret things differently and be able to release the depression more easily.
Okay. Aaron, when they say that it rely on what we interpret and respond to what happened, that is the key. That make us either less depressed or more depressed. So what when they say the interpret and respond, what does it mean? And
Oh, I couldn't understand what you said.
you don't understand what I'm just saying?
Yeah, like I couldn't really understand what you were saying.
Okay, so what I'm saying here, in here, from this statement here, they say that what we have come to learn is that it isn't happen to the people that increase their risk for the depression. That means when it happens to the people, it doesn't mean that. Just like, let me say that if we have two people who depressed, and one could be very successful to get out the depression, the other one is not, because depend on how they interpret and respond to the specific, whatever the event in life, and the life event that happened to them. You understand, Aaron?
Yeah.
So can you give me what, let's say that, what kind of, based on what to interpret, and that make them either have more depression or less depression. Qua, you understand? Are you there? What? Okay. Tell me.
So how you interpret something is how you understand it, and how you respond is the action you take towards it. So if you interpret, like he was speaking of globally, so if you interpret a situation, say, for example, your partner cheated on you, so your boyfriend or girlfriend cheated on you, and you come to understand or interpret that as, oh, every every boy is a cheater, rather than, or you can interpret it as, oh, this one person did me wrong, and then your response is the action you take towards it. So you could interpret that and say, oh, I'm never going to date anybody again because all males are horrible. Or you could respond and say, that one, needs to grow and learn, and just let it be their problem, not your problem. So interpreting is how you understand it, and responding is the action you take towards it. Do you become stuck, or do you release it?
Yeah, usually in here they also mention about the internal orientation. That means we base on our feeling and our thought to make the decision. Is that a good thing to base on our feeling and our thought to make the decision? Will? Will, are you there? Okay. So Aaron, is that a good idea to base on the feeling and and the thought to make the decision? Do we trust our feeling and do we trust our thought?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Actually, from here, that's what he said. It based on the feeling and the thought, and especially when we are depressed, right? We base on the feeling. It's a terrible thing to do, and we base on our thought even terrible if we don't have. That's why he said that we need to have the multiple explanation. Tell me why when he said that we need to have a multiple explanation, what does that mean?
So he said it, and also in Buddhism they say the same thing. Like, you should not trust your emotions, you should not trust your thoughts, because they're always changing. Right. So and then especially if you're depressed, you're going to go to the worst case scenario, with his example of, I called somebody in the morning, left a message, say call me back at nighttime, they still hadn't called. So at that point I'm at, well, nobody loves me, nobody cares about me. Where the other, you could have multiple scenarios going on. You have no idea what another person's going through. Maybe they're just so busy. Maybe that their phone's not working. I mean, there's all different kinds of situations that could be really going on. So you don't want to get stuck on one negative situation to bring you down. And then also, you mentioned it's good to have friends that you can go to, friends that you can trust to go to. So if you're stuck on, this person didn't call me back, they don't care about me, and then you're going to the extreme of nobody cares about me, then you need to be able to pick up that phone and call a friend and say, hey, and run it by them to let them help you say, well, maybe you're not looking at it right. Maybe all these other options, all these other things could be what's really going on. Give it time, because with more information, you'll figure out what actually happened. They'll probably call you the next day and say, hey, and explain what happened.
Good. So later on, I will bring in the Buddha teaching related to this. So just like you just said, so Buddha said that we should not trust our feeling. We should not trust our thought, because those things keep changing. And if we trust them too much, and especially for the depressed person, we will make a terrible decision. And that's why it's increased more risk factor. That's why. Why are you still there? Why? Okay. Wing,
Yeah, sorry.
what happened to you? Why? I called you.
I think my Wi-Fi just because you keep cutting off for me, so I can't
Okay.
hear.
But you so far you understand what we just discussed so far?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead and read number one and number one for me.
What is depression? Depression is technically considered a mood disorder, but it's far more than that. Depression's tentacles reach out into every part of a person's life. It affects not just our mood; it affects our physiology, our physical health. If you are the child of a depressed parent, your likelihood of suffering depression is 3 to 6 times greater than if you are the child of non-depressed parents.
So that means the depressed person is not because it's not come naturally. It's usually based on the history and the background of when they were young, right? So if they live in the environment that very depressed and they turn out to be very, they will have a lot of chance to become depressed. So this means here when we at the family, right? When we have kids, we we should have a very healthy environment for the kid, because that helps them to grow healthier and help them to have the better grow up in the future. That means they can be able to avoid all these things. Right? They will not have any kind of negative feeling and thought that. Okay, let's see. In here we okay. Okay, Tina, go ahead and read through this. Tina, number 2.
Risk factors affected by the depression. How depression serves as a risk factor for many different conditions, most notably cardiovascular disease. In fact, there are cardiologists around the world who are recommending screening for depression as a first screen of cardiovascular disease for others as well, and a reach into our ability to think and make decisions. Furthermore, the quality of people's decisions and how their way of making decisions actually unintentionally reinforces depression. It affects job performance and our ability to function.
Mm.
In the work that we do, it affects concentration. How many work-related accidents that damage people and damage people's lives are caused by inattention caused by depression. It affects relationships. It's hard to be around people who are depressed. It ends up damaging relationships and, of course, all that leads to more isolation and more depression. The patterns that give rise to depression that affect our quality of life of a lifetime.
Okay, do you understand what the threat? Mm. Mm. So basically, the depression is right now in the world. It's the number one, the mental disorder disease, and especially during the COVID-19, right? This is even worse, and they will affect everything, right? And when we have the depression, usually it will affect our life for the lifetime. It's not only for that certain period. And also it will affect our children as well. If we are become the parent, and we will, our children will have 3 times or 6 times greater than to depression than the children with our depressed parent. And that's why the depression causes a lot of risk factors, like one of them is cardiovascular disease. And that's why when the cardiologist, when they the exam and diagnosis the problem with the heart, and they recommend that to do the swimming for the depression, because that means that the depression is the most vulnerable to the heart disease. And of course, when we have depression, we cannot make the decision. We cannot perform whatever the specific job, the specific function that we daily usually we do, but we cannot do it now, and we cannot concentrate it. And a lot of accidents relate to that, to work, right? It will due to the depression. And later on, I will come up with we can use the real story, and we will learn about this even deeper. And the person who have depression, they will affect not only the job performing, concentration, but they also affect the relationship, right? And they also damage because when the depressed person, right, if anything, because they are the one who easily become what do you call suspicious, right? Right, Tammy? Tammy, is that true?
Are you saying suspicious?
If they are, if the person is depressed, right, it means that they are very suspicious to other people, right? They don't have it's very tough for them to trust anyone. Basically, what I'm saying.
Sure.
It's not easy. So that means what does that mean? It means that if somebody else says something, right, they will use their feeling, and they will use their own feeling to make the decision, because they only trust their feeling. They don't trust other people much. So that's why if somebody says something that may be misunderstanding, and they don't look in that way, but they look in their own negative feeling way to make the decision, and the more they make the they damage the relationship, and this is terrible. And and uh, and they will, of course, when they do that, they will isolate, right? That means they become very isolation, and later on lead them to the loneliness. And the loneliness also, the person who feel loneliness, they become very depressed, and eventually they will end up with the suicide. Last 2 weeks, because at the temple we open the the class for the kids come here to practice the martial art, right? And there were I teach the kids for the Buddhist class, and that family came here for that class as well. And she had 4 children, and she told me that she have a friend, right? Her friend daughter is 9th grade, and she commit suicide. And luckily that the family be able to catch it before she got worse. But you know what? After the daughter recovered from the suicide, and she said to the parents that I will do it again next time. Kwa, when the person say like that, what do you think?
I'm sorry. When a person says what?
Okay, the daughter of one of the woman friend, right? She commits suicide. Okay, and luckily, I think the family or the parent be able to catch it before she end up dying, right? So that means after she recover from the suicide, and you know what she said to her parent? I will do it again. What does that mean? I mean, I'm going to commit suicide again.
I think that's a part of like how depression, you can't really get rid of it completely, and that you can never always be completely happy, but there can be things that can treat depression, like being more socially and mentally healthier, and like having the people around you feel better. But it's, I guess it's like saying like there's no escape from it.
Okay. Helping the depressed people is very tough. It's not easy job to do. And you know what? We need to have patience. Sometimes it takes years, not months, years. And have to be consistent. And we have to build in order to help the depressed person. What is the tell me, if we have a friend, right, in that situation, and we want to help them, what is the good approach?
To remain in contact with them. So always calling on them, checking on them, and then trying to get them to go out and do stuff with you. Or if they don't want to come out, then go visit them. So, but mainly communicating with them, even if they don't respond, to continue to communicate and keep contact with them.
This is I have done this thing for many years. So when I help I think my aunt, she in depressed for a long time, and I go down to visit the family every week on the weekend. I spend time with them. I join them to have the lunch together every weekend, and I do that for 9 years, 8 or 9 years, very consistent. And I do go down there and we do the praying together, and we have the lunch together. And you know what? When she had the depressed, and you know what? She did not want to talk to anyone in the family, or anyone. I mean, the relative, the nephew or the niece or whatever. She did not want to talk to them. But the exception here, and I'm the only exception that I come and visit her, and she wants to talk to me. That's all. I'm the only one that can be near to her. So basically, and because she lose trust in everyone. And in order to build a trust, right? In order to build a trust, we need to be very consistent. And we need to really give the love and kindness to this person unconditionally. And once you do that consistently, and you involve with them, just a part of the family, and you know what? Eventually, we build the trust. And when they trust you, and whatever you say, they willing to listen. But it will take years, not months. Okay. And at that time, she did not want to cook for anything. She did not do anything. My uncle had to do all those things. She did not want to go to the market. My uncle had to do all those things. So she just stay home. And you know what happened? She keeps saying, mumbling herself over and over all the time. She talked to herself. That is the depression person look like. And she easily hold on the past memory. And it's not easy to help them to let go. No, it's not easy at all. It's very tough. But once you spend so much time with them and you really show them your love, and they will feel it. Eventually, they will get out. Especially right now, see back to almost normal. It's 80%, 90% normal. So she do all the cooking. She go to the market. She also visit family relatives. So it's really good. And she have very good children. My cousin. That I always encourage them to look after their mom. But right now I see she's been well. So helping the depressed person is not easy at all. Okay. But when you be able to do it, and that is the true love and kindness. Okay. Either depression caused by the genetic. What do you think? Anyone? Wing, are you there? Carl?
Yes.
Okay, good. You're still there. That's good. Either depression caused by the genetic. What do you think, Queen?
No.
No? Hmm.
No.
No. No and yes. No and yes. The depression is not caused by the genetic by itself because there is no such thing called the depressed genetic. But the genetic disease will cause the depression. That's the difference. Does it make sense to you, Quinn?
Yes.
Okay. The genetic by itself is not cause the depression because there is no such thing called the depressed genetic. But the genetic disease will cause the depression because of the disease. Okay. Tell me, do you understand when we say the biochemical imbalance?
That's similar to genetics, I think, but it's not the genetics, it's more just the chemicals within the body.
Mm-hmm. And positive and negative chemical, I have that here. Tell me, go ahead and help me to read it. Thank you.
What is a chemical imbalance in the brain? A chemical imbalance in the brain is said to occur when the brain has either excessive or insufficient chemicals called neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are natural chemicals that help ease the communication between your nerve cells. Examples include norepinephrine and serotonin. It's often said that mental health conditions such as depression and anxiety are caused by chemical imbalance in the brain. What are the symptoms of chemical imbalance in the brains? Feelings of sadness, helplessness, worthlessness, or emptiness. Overeating or a loss of appetite. Insomnia or sleeping too much. Restlessness, irritability. What are the symptoms? What are the symptoms of a chemical imbalance in the brain? A feeling of impending doom or danger, a lack of energy, distancing yourself from others, a feeling of numbness or a lack of empathy, extreme changes in mood, thoughts of hurting yourself or others, difficulty carrying out day-to-day activities, a feeling of hearing voices in your head, alcohol or drug misuse, difficulty concentrating. Antidepressants medications work by increasing the levels of serotonin and other neurotransmitters in the brain.
Okay. Okay, so basically the chemical changing in our brain, we do have a chemical. It's when either too much or too little. That's why it becomes imbalanced, and that will cause the problem. A lot of problem symptoms like this, and all this thing here is a part of the depression. So this is also the symptom of the depression as well. And also in here, you see that someone have this kind of the situation, they will have a feeling of hearing the voice in their head. Someone when we have a depression, and this is also figure because the imbalance chemical that will cause us to have the hearing voice inside our head, and sometimes we thought that this is that's why when they listen to that kind of voice, and they will base on that voice to make the decision. Is that a good thing to do, Aaron?
Can you repeat that again?
Okay, because due to the imbalance chemical, right? The chemical imbalance, we have many symptoms, and one of the symptoms is they have a feeling to hearing the voice inside the head, right?
Yes.
If the depressed person, they base on the hearing voice to make the decision, is that a good thing to do?
You kind of cut off.
All right,
Like-
oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Due to the biochemical imbalance, we have many these symptoms, and one of the symptoms here is a feeling of hearing voice inside your head. Okay, so
Yes.
first, if the depressed person, if the depressed person, if they using the hearing voice to make that decision, is that a good thing to do?
No.
Never. Not never good at all. Okay, this is very dangerous. And a lot of people, you know what? they say that they can be able to hear the voice. Somebody talk inside their head, and they thought that they have some kind of a special what you call special skill. I say, wow. Sometimes when we take a lot of medication, right? Especially the sleeping pill, the medication will also have the side effect like this. And you know what? They attach to the hearing wheel, the hearing voice inside their head, and they believe that whatever inside their head it say it's true, and they attach to that, and they make the decision based on that, and that makes their life even worse. And when they attach to those things, and we try to convince them, you know what? It's not easy at all. And usually for the old people, I witnessed this thing already. And I tried to convince her. I said that you remember, if we say that if someone it's easy for the person say that I have depression. Do they accept that they have a problem? Tell me. The depression.
No, the majority of people do not want to admit or accept that they're depressed. They want to just be like, everything's fine. They
Yeah.
don't want to accept it.
Yeah, that's correct. Exactly with my aunt. So if you say that they have problem, they have depression, no, they deny, they reject everything. Okay? And that is very tough. So for those people, we have to be very sensitive. We have to be very careful what we're saying. We should not say that they have problem. We just treat them normal, just like no problem. And with the love and kindness and compassion, and help them to involve in different activities, just like the social life, to whatever they can handle, and that makes them feel a little bit better and better each day, and that's how we be able to eventually or gradually we can move them out. It will take years, but it's okay. Doesn't matter. Time is not important, but important is the heart, the heart, the love and kindness and the compassion we put in, that it counts, nothing else. That's important. That's why when we take the medication, usually when the depression, the people have the depression, and when it comes to the therapist or the psychiatrist, they cannot be able to help the depressed person, and what they can do is antidepressant, even worse. Because antidepressant is not the medication to kill the depression. No, there is no such thing. No medication can kill the depression. It's only managed. Yes, it's managed. But when we take too much medication, it becomes worse. Okay, and that's why we have to be very careful. Okay, next week we will go to step by step what we see from the movie, and make sure that we understand exactly what the video that explained to us. When we understand it, that means we understand on the level of Western psychology. Okay, psychologists. And we will, later on, I will bring the Buddhist psychology in and also the Buddha teaching. So you see both sides, the solution from both sides. And you will see, because if we have more than one method, it's always better. That will give them the choice, the choice to use and to pick and use. That's important. Okay, I think time is running now. Next week we only go to the slide. I will stop the video. We will not watch the video until we go all the way up to the video that we have seen. Then we will watch the remaining, and we will go to the rest. And that's important. Go ahead. Go.
May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with heart of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may their minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward, may all who so relieve their grief and pain. May this boundless light break the darkness of their endless night, because our hearts are one. This road of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise.
Okay. What do you think about this kind of material, the teaching material? Wing, Tina, and Aaron, and Kwa, what do you think? Tell me.
It's important to learn about and understand.
That's correct. Kwa, what do you think about this? Wing and Tina.
It's informational.
Informational. One we understand and we can recognize, right? And that help us when we have a friend or even ourselves. We be able to recognize that our friend or ourselves or our family member have that kind of a symptom, and we know that they in the depressed, they have depression, and we try our best to help them. If we don't understand, of course, we don't know how to help them. Okay. In this learning, we're not only learning about to understand the depression, we will also learning how to recover from the depression. That's the most important. But Tammy, what did you think, Tammy?
I think it's great that you're going over all this information for everyone, especially such young ages for them. It's important to talk about it, get it out there, and especially today's day with everybody going through COVID. I can't imagine anybody that's not affected with depression in some way at this point because of everything that all the lockdowns and everything. So it's very important. But like you said, when you recognize it in people, don't go around saying, I think you're depressed. Instead, help them through your actions and following up, communicating with them, contacting them, and not walking away from them. When you contact somebody a lot and then you walk away, that's going to make it even worse. So really try to be committed to it when you try to help somebody through it.
Yeah, that's correct. And don't label them they are the depressed person, because they will reject it and they will keep a distance from us. So if we want to help them, we have to help them with kindness. And that's the thing, we have to be very patient. And you know what? In the statistic, they say the depression, the young age, it's the huge from age 19 to 28. They are the most vulnerable to the depression. Okay, so especially for the young age, like you children here. It's good for you to learn this, and when you in that situation, you know how to deal with it, and you know how to manage, and that makes you less depression, and you can make the right decision instead of make the bad decision. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Oh, I forgot to do the meditation, but anyway. All right. Namo Yidava. Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on, Thai.
Okay, go.